Welcome to week one of semester two for English 10 with yours truly, Mrs. Albritton. I'm excited. This is going to be a really fun start to our semester. So, if you haven't ever had me before and you're watching this, it's because you heard me talk about it at some point. I record these videos once a week, going over the slides, so you know what to do if you miss it, being sick or whatever else happens. So this is going over week one of semester two. So the first day that we get back will be an all meet Monday, and we're going to just kind of review a lot of things. It's to help review if you had me last semester and to get you kind of settled in if you did not have me. So we're going to do a get to know Mrs. A Kahoot. And then I want to go over again, slash review or cover the way that I run English and how it works. First of all, I want to remind you that why I teach. I teach because of you, because I love my job, being able to interact with you, see you grow and learn and laugh and learn from you. I know that sounds very cheesy, but you are my reason for why I teach. My teaching philosophy: focus on the learning, not just having the right answer. Take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically. Approach new things with a growth mindset. And I only ever expect effort, not perfection, because perfection is not real. So the next few slides are going to be things that you can expect from this class, things that I do on a pretty regular, routinely basis. If you have questions about any of these things, you can always ask me in class or email me. But for the most part, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. When I take attendance, I have a fun attendance question every day, so you'll say your answer to the question instead of saying here. Our main assignment every single week is Google Slides, which you should be viewing right now. We do this instead of having like a physical notebook. This is all set up in Canvas. And then if in class, when we're working on these slides, if you need to borrow a Chromebook, please check it out. Put your name on the list. It's this thing right here. I have a clipboard on my desk. It helps me keep track and make sure I don't lose them because I only have two. Homework is going to be incredibly rare in this class because my philosophy is that you work hard all day long. A lot of you, most of you, have stuff going on outside of school that takes up a lot of time, and I just don't see how homework can benefit your learning when you're exhausted and trying to cram it in. So use your time wisely, and then if you really need help or have questions, please talk to me, communicate with me, and I would love to help you. My 4 p.m. policy. I feel like I did a fairly good job of keeping this last semester. I try my hardest to set boundaries because I don't want to burn myself out or become stressed out. So I will not be checking or responding to emails after 4 p.m. or on the weekend. So if it's urgent and you can let me know ahead of time, please do. Obviously, I know sometimes things come up. And then you can also check the office hours poster hanging in my window by my door. Okay, you're already doing this. You're viewing this video, which means you figured out how to check that out in Canvas. Break time, I give us 2 5-minute breaks, one in the middle of class and then one at the very end, except for I don't do breaks on Mondays because it's all meet day. Check-ins, this is one of my favorite things. I will have an opportunity to check in with you at least once next semester, but I'm hoping for possibly twice or 3 times. I grade doing proficiency. So essentially, this is kind of what it looks like. 4 is highly proficient. If you are aiming for honors credit, you really want to aim for a 4. These are how the grades are broken down. Summative reading is 30%. Summative writing is 30%. So both reading and writing, summatives. Summatives are worth 60% of your grade. Formative writing and reading are worth 20%. Summatives are things like big projects, big essays, big assignments. Formative are going to be like the Google Slides, other assignments that we have. And then this is the breakdown of how I grade in terms of percentages. So it's definitely different from like the standard 100 to 90, 90 to 80 type of deal. So I am going to be printing out and giving you a syllabus so you can take this home and have it, store it. Please look at it because a lot of times people will freak out and forget that I don't grade like how people typically do. Okay, cell phones, just put it away. Unless I ask you to have it out or unless it's break time, put it away. It's that simple. Food and drinks. I do not care if you eat in my class or drink something that's not watered, but please don't distract yourself or other people. And please, please, please clean up after yourself. I am not a custodian. I'm not your mom. You got to clean up after yourself. Late work policy. This is super important. I treat every 6 weeks like a box. Once we move out of the current 6 weeks and into a new 6 week grading period, the one that we were just in is a locked box. In other words, you cannot submit any late work outside of the current 6 weeks that we're in, unless you have a very valid reason. Like maybe you get super sick, maybe something kind of devastating happens in your life with your family. I don't know. But you got to communicate with me and talk to me. I'm not above being compassionate and working with you, but this is just me trying to weed out kind of the laziness and lack of responsibility. Participation. I love it when you participate. Please talk during class when I'm asking questions. Ask questions yourself. Have your materials out and ready to go. Engage in the whole class or group activities. We're going to have several of those the rest of this semester, so please do that and put your phone away. It helps a lot. Last thing, embedded honors. The English department at West does a top-down approach, which means that we treat the class like it's honors, and you still have the opportunity to opt out, like you don't have to try to earn honors credit. And this means that your grade, your final grade at the end of the semester will be bumped up one if that is you, because that's what they agreed to do. So if you have questions about that, ask me later. Okay, now we're moving on to day 2, which should be Tuesday and Wednesday. We are starting a nonfiction unit. We're going to first start off with a warm-up writing prompt. This is a quote from Nelson Mandela. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. So I want you to look at that quote, think about it, and tell me what comes to your brain when you read this. What is he trying to say? So our nonfiction unit. To give you some context, nonfiction, what is that? It's a genre, and a genre is a category of text. It's a type of writing. Different genres in English literature. There are so many more than this, but these are just a few of the big ones. Nonfiction, fiction, poetry, drama. And then within those big categories, you've got little things like sci-fi, sonnets, plays. They all break down into smaller categories, but we're going to be focusing on nonfiction. Within nonfiction, we're talking about real facts, real events, real people, real things. When you're looking at nonfiction, we're going to be looking at this area: biography, autobiography, and memoir. And I'm just giving you a quick snapshot of what the differences are. A biography goes over a person's entire life. It's a written history of it. An autobiography means that it's a person's entire life, but it was written and narrated by the person whose the biography is about. And then a memoir is kind of a little bit more free-flowing. It doesn't have to be your whole entire life. It could be just a small snapshot, but it's a narrative about a personal experience. And this could be written by the person themselves or by another person. So we are going to start off this nonfiction unit by taking a look at this video from Crash Course. It's called How and Why We Read. And then you are going to answer the following question on this slide. Write down one thing that you learned or thought was interesting in this video, and please write it down. So in this video, John Green says, reading is always an act of empathy. It's always an imagining of what it's like to be somebody else. That is going to be one of our goals when we are reading Trevor Noah's book, because I guarantee you, for most, if not all of us, a lot of what he will talk about in the book, his experiences, his life, it's very different from ours. He grew up in he's much older than you. He's older than me. And he grew up in a different area of the world, a different time, and went through a lot of different things. So we're going to try to practice empathy while we're reading. So speaking of the book that we're going to be reading, we are reading Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. As we read, these are the 2 questions by the end of the unit that we want to be able to answer. To what extent is our identity shaped by culture and society? And how does empathy change the way that we view and interact with others? So what is this book about? I don't know if you've heard about it or not. I don't even know if you know who Trevor Noah is. Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood. This is an amazing, fascinating, and very funny autobiography about comedian Trevor Noah growing up in South Africa during the end of apartheid. If you are unfamiliar with apartheid, that is okay. It's not something in history or social studies classes in the US that we spend a ton of time talking about, but I'm fairly certain that at some point you would have learned this in your social studies class, assuming that it was in the curriculum. But anyway, so he is a comedian. He hosted The Daily Show. He doesn't anymore. He just recently changed that, but he's kind of a celebrity, mostly a comedian. So, where are we going to get a copy of the text? I have hard copies. Every single person can get a hard copy of the book. Or if you want to take notes in a different fashion, because I'm going to talk to you about taking notes, I also can print off the digital version, or you can just use the digital version on your computer. I would highly recommend using the book because it's just so much easier to track and follow along, but you have options. How are we going to be reading it? We are reading it entirely in class. I am never going to ask you to go home and read. This will all be done in class. Ideally, we're going to read one chapter per week and roughly split it between, like, start the first half of the chapter on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the second half on a Thursday and Friday. And I have the audiobook, so you get to hear Trevor actually read it himself. It's hilarious. He's funny. You'll love it. One of the assignments that you'll be doing in addition to the weekly Google Slides and then the summative project at the end is called Patricia's Advice. So Trevor's mother, her name's Patricia, she offers him lots of advice and lessons throughout his life. He talks a lot about her in his book because she is a massive figure in his life, and you're going to kind of collect these lessons by just jotting down a few notes in this Google Doc. So you're going to see this. I'll show you in Canvas later. So the first thing we need to do before we dive into the book is get some background context. Namely, we need to understand what apartheid is, or maybe review it if you already know. So you are going to take a look at these links. I want you to spend some time kind of just clicking on them, researching through them, and making a list of the top 5 things that you learned about apartheid in South Africa, like the top 5 things that stood out to you, and then we'll talk about it. So, to give you some more context, this story takes place in South Africa. That is where Trevor's from. Africa is a continent. It is not a country, it's a continent with many countries in it. And it's massive. This picture shows you, like, in terms of land space and mileage. I don't really know the breakdown of the math, but it's huge. It's a very massive piece of land. And South Africa is all the way down here at the very bottom. So, some details to know, there's a population of about 50 million people. This is about the continent of Africa. Within the continent, there are 54 sovereign countries. And then when we're talking about South Africa specifically, there are 11 official languages, including English, Afrikaans, Sesotho, Setswana, and Xhosa and Zulu. South Africa has 3 different capitals: Pretoria, Cape Town, and Bloemfontein. And if you click on this link, it'll give you a Google Earth Maps link that you can look at and kind of explore and look at the topography and different aspects of South Africa. So one of the major towns that we will see come up a lot in the book is called Soweto. This is the town that Trevor grew up in. It's about a 34-minute drive from Johannesburg. Johannesburg is a pretty fairly well-known city in South Africa. If you've heard of South Africa, I would assume that you've probably heard of the name of Johannesburg. The population of Soweto is 1.3 million, and it was originally created in the 1930s as a way to segregate people via housing. So we're going to do some vocab check. I want you to tell me what you know about these 3 words, whatever you've heard in the past, could make a guess on, and write that down in these boxes. There's some sentence frames to help you. So after taking a break, we're going to talk about taking notes. I want you to take notes as you read. This is what I would do, and I have a bunch of things to help you. Color code and highlighting by this key: Trevor's mom, any golden lines that you see, history, and then anything about Trevor's thoughts and perspective. You can do this with sticky notes. If you want to do printout of the PDF, I can give you highlighters and pens. If you want to take notes like digitally, you could save the PDF and take notes up here, like how I've screenshotted. There's so many different ways that you can do it. I want you to do it in whatever way works for you and your brain. Okay, so we are going to start on Tuesday and Wednesday with reading chapter 1. The first chapter is called Run, and it's about 33 minutes long, so we'll read about 15-ish minutes. Just so you know, before we begin, there is some language in Trevor Noah's novel, but I would say it's not overwhelming. It's definitely not anything above PG-13, but, just letting you know. And then after we start chapter 1, we're going to start taking notes, reading comprehension notes. I want you to compare and contrast the 3 churches that Trevor and his mother attend. Black church, white church, mixed church, and list any similarities that they share. So just jotting down some notes. What do you notice about how he describes each one? And then I want you to write down what we know about Patricia, Trevor's mom, so far. How does he describe her? What is her personality like? What does she look like? And then maybe describe what their relationship is like as mother and son. So, going on to Thursday and Friday, we're going to recap at the beginning of class with a partner to see what we remember about these words because we talked about them. Then we're going to watch this TED Talk called The Danger of a Single Story. There's a possibility that you have seen this before. If you have, I'm sorry that you have to watch it again, but it's a very, very good TED Talk and it brings up a lot of interesting points. So after we watch it, we are going to answer these questions based off of these quotes. There's 2 slides. And then we are going to finish chapter 1. And then we're going to do chapter 1 recap. What are your first impressions of his autobiography? Is there anything that you can relate to? Anything that you found interesting? That is where we will end for week 1. If you have any questions, please let me know.